Hi guys. So to begin with, this is your graded warm-up number 2, so you need to make sure that this is on the same sheet as your last warm-up. Um, and then do not turn this warm-up in, so that way you're making sure you have it for the next time. You have until Friday, May 17th to correct and retake your quiz. I will be back tomorrow if you need help with the corrections before you retake. Make sure you take home the parent signature sheet and have that with your corrections. If you're ready to retake and you've already corrected, you're more than welcome to go into Mr. Zeidler's, and he has the math retakes ready to go. So make sure that today you're actually taking notes to ensure that you don't miss anything. And then if you have any questions, I'll be back tomorrow before I'm gone again Wednesday to see you guys. So pause the video, make sure the first 3 of these are answered, and then you guys will be ready to move on. So here's your objective. This is 7.2. You need to head your notes as 7.2, identify complementary and supplementary angles and use angles to find missing measure relationships. It'll be extremely similar to the last slideshow that we did, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys, it was broken up just a little bit. So here's your vocabulary. I would not write them down right now because you guys will get to that when we get there. So in your notes, this is what I would have written down. So I would write the word complementary, and then I would write that it's 2 angles that add to 90 degrees. This is also called an adjacent angle, so that's something that's important to know. And then I would draw this model so that you know you're talking about 2 angles and it has to add to this 90-degree angle. If you want this, this is a good thing to have, but you don't necessarily need it. For supplementary angles, it's 2 angles that add to 180 degrees or a straight line. This is also an adjacent angle because it's 2 of them that are adding, they're side by side. So again, I would have supplementary, it adds to 180 degrees or a straight line. It's also an adjacent angle, and then this is something good to have if you would like. So I've put these slides in, especially since I'm doing a video, because I wanted to make sure that your guys' notes were really accurate because I'm not there to kind of guide you. So in your notebook, this is exactly what I'd have written down. So complementary adds to 90, also an adjacent angle with that model. And then same thing with supplementary, it adds to 180 or a straight line. This is also an adjacent angle. Okay, so for this example, you guys need to write the question and the model in your notes for a reference. So that way you guys have them, so we're going back to that. I'm not just writing the answers in my notebook, so I'm not just getting pieces of it. Okay, so for the first one, I would write identify each pair of angles as complementary, supplementary, or neither. You need that entire sentence, and then I would draw the model. So 1 and 2 are supplementary angles, and then you need to justify this. So going back to that vocabulary piece, because they are side by side and they add to 180 degrees. Okay. The second piece, I would not write this part down simply because it's already a part of this up here, but I would write this model down. So angles 128 degrees and 52 degrees are supplementary angles, and then again justify because they add up to 180 degrees. So this is how you know this and why you know this. Okay, so in your notes, this is exactly what I'd have written down. So I'd have this piece of it with the model. I would not have this piece, but mine's connected, so I had to have that piece. And then here's my answers, so that way when I'm going to have a quiz, you guys know that you're going to see these on your quiz. You can look at them. I would not skip corners, especially when you're making sure that you're taking these notes, simply because you're doing extra work now, so you don't have to do extra work later. So you don't have to retake, you don't have to correct. You can do it right the first time, and you have all of these pieces in here. So this next slide, I'd like you guys to pause the video, and I'd like you guys to do this one on your own. And then when you come back, it will take you to the next slide. So go ahead and pause the video and you guys complete this one. So in your notes, it should look like this. Angle 60 and angle 30 are complementary because they are 2 angles that add to 90. And then angle 1 and angle 2 are also complementary because they add to 90 degrees and they form a right angle. And I know this looks like a lot of notes, but the more notes you take now, the easier it will be on your quiz, and you'll have them as a resource to look back on. So the more work you do now, you don't have to correct and retake. So just make sure you're putting more work in now than later. Okay, so you guys pause the video and go ahead and do this one, and then when you guys get back, I will give you the answers. Okay, so looking at this, angle A adds to 175, so they are neither complementary or supplementary because they don't add to 90 or 180. Angle B, those are complementary because they add to 90 degrees. Okay, so especially for A, make sure you're looking at that and you're telling me what they add up to. You're not just looking at it and saying, well, it doesn't quite create a straight line. Always tie it back to the vocabulary so that way you know. Again, this is an important one to have in your notes, so you have it as a reference. You already have this one in your notes as under complementary, so I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about B. Okay, so we're going back to equations yet again. So when you're solving equations, don't forget you're always doing the opposite. And then again, it's going back to that vocabulary, the complementary and the supplementary. What do they add to? What do they equal? Things like that. So the last time we talked, I had you guys do 4 steps, and those 4 steps stated what type of angle is it, and at that point we were just saying vertical and adjacent. Okay, so now we're going to take it one step further. If they're adjacent, they either have to be supplementary or complementary. So that ties in 2 of your vocabulary words. And then when you're doing that, then you can move down to step 2. If they're vertical, they were going to be equal. If they were adjacent, they had to add to 90 or add to 180. That add to 90 would be complementary, add to 180 would be supplementary. Okay, so if you're looking at this, I'm going to skip to the next slide just so you guys can see the notes. So step 1 are what type of angles are these? So these 3 steps I wrote in blue, they should already be in your notes. Okay, so what type of angles are these? Step 2 was, are they equal? Do they add to 90 or do they add to 180? And step 3 was, write your equation. Okay, so for 2x plus 28, to answer number 1, it would be complementary angles. So that means they have to add to 90. So then you'd set up your equation, 2x plus 28 equals 90. From there, you would subtract 28 and go back through your 2-step process. So you'd be left with 2x equals 62 and x equals 31. So again, don't forget that x equals 31 is not the degree measurement. That is just what x represents. That's not what the actual degrees is. Okay, so this is an important one to have in your notes because we haven't solved one like this yet. And then this is going to be another important one to have in your notes because we haven't solved one like this yet either. So going back through the questions 1, 2, and 3, what types of angles, they would be supplementary. Since they're supplementary, they add to 180. So again, understanding that vocabulary. And then your equation would be 56 plus x is equal to 180. So you'd subtract the 56 to get the x by itself, and you'd be left with x is equal to 124 degrees. Okay, because this is something you guys can work through on your own pace, I would be taking as many notes as I can because you're not being rushed through it. So I'd make sure that you are doing the best that you can now, and it'll pay up in the future. So for this one, I want you guys to pause the video and go ahead and try this one, and then see how well you do. Okay, so if you looked at this, it gave you the clue that these are supplementary angles within the piece of it. And let me skip a couple. Okay, so I'm actually going to have you pause the video on this one as well, and I'm going to have you guys do this one, and then I will show you the notes to both of these questions. So make sure you have this supplementary one and this complementary one in your notes, and then when you come back, I'll show you how to write them in your notes. Okay, so for the first one, it said in the directions that it was supplementary. So question 1 would be supplementary. The second piece it would add to 180. And again, this is repetitive and it's a lot of practice, and I want it to be because the more you practice this, the more you write this down, the more of a habit it becomes. So we want it to become a habit so that way you're not missing pieces. So your equation would be 123 plus 3x is equal to 180 for step 3. You would subtract 123, and then you'd be left with 3x equals 57. You divide by 3 and get x equals 19. For the second slide that I had you guys do, it becomes complementary. It adds to 90. 63 plus 3x is equal to 90, and then you would subtract 63 and get 3x equals 27 and x equals 9. So another big piece of this is because you guys know I'll be back tomorrow, but I won't be back in your class on Wednesday. It's really important that if you have questions, you're coming in to see me tomorrow so I can clarify anything before you do the next lesson on Wednesday. Because you have a quiz a week from tomorrow. So it's important that you are understanding or not a week from tomorrow, a week from Wednesday. So your quiz will actually be next Thursday, but you need to make sure that you're understanding that. Okay. So you guys go ahead and we're going to work through this one a little bit together because I want you guys to kind of see this. Okay, so if you notice, these would be considered complementary angles. So my question 1 would be complementary. So question 2 would then be it adds to 90. What's different about this equation is there was no constant, so it's all variables. So I have to add these together and combine like terms. So I have x plus x equals 90. And then you can combine those and get 2x equals 90 to make it a little bit easier. And then after you solve for that, you get x equals 45. Okay, so you're going to start seeing that we take a lot of the numbers away, and we're going to start asking you guys to do a lot more of the variables because that's the piece that we're really asking you for when it comes to the algebra part of it. So this one, I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and then you guys do this one. And then when you get back, I will go ahead and give you the notes. Okay, so looking at this, you should have answered that they're supplementary, meaning they add to 180 because these are on that straight line. So you'd have 10x plus 80 equals 180. Subtract 80 to get 10x equals 100, and then x equals 10. Okay, so one more, and you guys go ahead and do this one, and then I'll give you the answers. Okay, so this one you should have answered that they're complementary. It adds to 90, so it would have been 6x plus 72 equals 90. You would have subtracted 72 to get 6x equals 18, and then you would have gotten x equals 3 after you divided by 6. Okay, so you guys now have 7.1 and 7.2 worksheet to complete. If you complete it in class, fantastic. If not, it is due next time. I will not accept it late, so if you have any questions, please make sure to go into Mr. Zeidler or come in tomorrow, since I will not be there Wednesday to clarify any questions. Okay, I hope you guys have a fabulous Monday, and I hope to see some of you guys tomorrow if you need any help. And then I will not see you again on Wednesday either, but Mrs. Bowers will be there to guide the class. So have a fabulous Monday, and I will see you guys on Friday.